Welcome back, everyone, to the eCoreAcademy e-learning platform today. My name is AJay Raj, of course, and today we're going to be moving on to one of our anatomy and physiology. In our anatomy and physiology course, we're going to be moving along in our integumentary system course application. So today we're going to be moving along with that central theme of looking at the skin, what the integumentary system is, breaking apart many different components of diseases and common day artifacts that the integumentary system, of course, offers to us in our bodies. Today, we're going to look at another specific priority and obviously another characteristic of the integumentary system that has to do with skin color, which is also known as pigmentation. So the goal of today's video is to look at what exactly influences our skin color, what makes it unique for different types of people, why do certain people have it in common, and why do some people look super abnormal from, what is the norm? Well, we all know that, we're characterized by our skin color oftentimes. And oftentimes these different races that we look at, they tend to have different features from each other, but there's similarities within each other. So what are those similarities amongst these different populations, and what are those differences amongst these different types of populations? So we're going to look at the biological role that our skin has in its coloration, and then of course in general, like our generic role, day-to-day life, how to identify certain diseases, certain conditions that you might have, genetic disorders that you might have, and certain treatment options that you might have. So this can also help you, detect if a certain person is off, understand certain things that come with your skin color, just in specifics, your skin color and what it does for you. It does more than just, look on the outside, make you look shiny, clean if you take care of it, but it has a lot of more immunizing roles and, of course, physiological roles. So that's what we're going to uncover in this video. So without further ado, let's jump right into it. But before I jump into the video, please make sure to subscribe down below. Smash that subscribe button. Hit that like button as well while you're there. Also turn on post notifications so you don't miss out on any of our channel's latest uploads and stay up to date with all of our courses. Feel free to utilize the comment section down below because, of course, we do pay attention to all of the comments that come through, and we'll try and give each and every single comment. It's given courtesy. If it's feedback, of course, we're going to implement them in our videos to come. So without further ado, let's jump right into it. Let's start off with our central theme. What exactly is skin color? I know you guys think, oh, it has to do with our sunlight, how it reflects off of our skin. Well, that's just merely on the outside. What does skin color have to do with the inside of our skin, so of our body? So how does the physiological roles within our body actually affect the epidermis, or the outside appearance of our skin? One word basically summarizes this entire process of what your skin color is going to look like, what gives it that permutation, and that has to do with pigmentation. And pigmentation is just a large word to actually summarize how your skin color is characterized on a biological role. So pigmentation is a substance located within plants and animals, of course, we're looking specifically at humans in this A and P course, that provides for a specific color on the exterior side of the skin, meaning the epidermis. So this is everything that's happening dermal, so happening within the dermis. All these biological roles are actually going to influence your epidermal specific coloring skin. And of course, it's going to influence that specific color on the exterior side of the skin, influenced by genetic and also environmental fares. So these fares are actually known as factors. So if you look here, the reason why we call it a fare is because it's actually considering to some sort of physiological role. So that's another word for actually factor. And in essence, the pigmentation of your skin is influenced by your parents' skin tone. Of course, we have those genetic enhancements and those qualifications. You're going to look somewhat like your parents. You're going to have inherited traits of both. So you're going to be mixed between both. That's why we're all born as unique individuals. Even if our parents look extremely alike, you're going to have different, you're definitely going to look a lot different due to the fact that they might have recessive genes that might be dominant in you. That might come over your dominant genes just in case of a permutation. So the pigmentation of your skin is most likely going to be influenced by your parents or their parents and their relatives that have certain conditions as well. Unless, of course, we have any possible genetic disorders, which I'll get into the last slide. That's something that you cannot necessarily control at birth. It's something that happens randomly, but don't let that stop you. I don't want to say that I feel sorry for you if you have a genetic disorder. No, you own it. You know what I'm saying? So that genetic disorder actually defines you. It's a disorder because you're different from everyone else. Does not necessarily mean that you are weaker than a certain person. Of course, there might be autoimmune deficiencies, but you can easily overcome those things. And of course, another very important one is the region in which you live and the amount of sunlight available also affects your skin color. So if you're born extremely dark, or if you're born extremely like fair skin, that can change over time. You know, of course, it's not going to be drastic. Like you're not just going to go from a darker skin type to an extremely white, a fair skin type, or vice versa. There are ways to do that, but that has to do with plastic surgery. That's stuff that you definitely want to stay away from unless you have to get a certain treatment for it. But when it comes to your skin color, obviously there are certain ways that you can change your skin color, but it will not be drastic. That's all I'm saying. But like we said, these are the different shades of skin colors that range from darkest to lightest. It doesn't matter what skin color you are at the end of the day. I know nowadays, we're trying to come away from that when it comes to judging a person by their skin color. And skin color this is a bit of a sidetrack to our common day, trying to bring a bit of a current event issue. Your skin color does not define you. You define yourself. We are all the same on the inside is what I want to say. Like biologically, we're all the same on the inside. Our skin color makes us different and unique. And that uniqueness is what made humanity so successful. And of course, we depend on one another. We're a social group of people. And of course, not one person is more inferior to the other person based off of color. So let's preach that. Now let's take another very important look at what influences actual skin color, because that's what you guys really want to know. What is skin color? That's what we went across. It's pigmentation. It's something within the actual body that releases certain chemicals, certain hormones to actually influence what type of skin color you're going to have. And those hormones themselves have coloration to them. And they actually have biological examples of coloration. When sun hits that certain chemical, it'll form a certain color that we all see. It's not necessarily just in skin, but it's also it's same properties of different colors that we see in general, in day-to-day objects that actually reflect light. That's how color is seen. So you're going to reflect the light off of that given material, and that chemical composition of color has to be designed for that sunlight to bounce off of it. So let's take a look at these influences. So first of all, we have our melanocytes. So if you guys recall from the very first video that I made for the integumentary system, I also went over the different types of cells that are involved in the integumentary system. And one of those very, very, very important ones are the melanocytes. So if you haven't already, please make sure to watch those sequences of videos. Please watch it in the order that I've already assigned it in. That should really help you, unless, of course, you know exactly what you want. You want to go in and out of these videos. But please follow the order that they've gone. I've structured this and I've studied it in such a way that I found myself much more productive as many of my colleagues or my partners. So what are melanocytes? So melanocytes are your definition of pigmentation. They're they're exactly what are going to give you your skin color definition, not just your color, but your tone, your overall tone and depth of color. So melanocytes are the dermal cells, meaning within the skin, that have specialized influence in the pigment of the skin, as everyone has all, everyone has all, that should be all humans, as everyone, and all humans have the same number of melanocytes, meaning all humans have the same exact number of melanocytes. So that does not necessarily define your skin color and what skin tone you have. That's very interesting. We all have the same amount of melanocytes, and that goes day to day. Each different type of person, even if you're a baby, first at birth, right in the delivery room, or an 85-year-old, man, that they have the same amount of melanocytes. And that's very interesting because those melanocytes are obviously going to be purposed in a different manner, because you guys can tell melanocytes themselves are not going to differ the skin color. So what about melanocytes will differ them? So factors that result in differences between skin tone are based off of the amount of melanin that is produced by each melanocyte and is triggered by the hormones within the body, and that's all responsible by the integumentary system. And it also depends on which type is more dominant than the other. So there's different types of melanin, and melanin in general is what's produced by melanocytes. So in short, how do I explain this? Melanocytes are not what make the difference for skin tone. It's the amount of melanin and the type of melanin that your melanocytes are programmed to produce. Meaning, it's going to necessarily be not just going to be environmental factors, meaning an immediate factor right then and there. It's going to make an adaptation right then and there. It's also going to be at birth. some genetic factors and some genetic disorders as well, possibly, that could affect that decision, that outcome. So I want to give you some examples. These are some very famous people. Hopefully you can tell. But that's the lady on the left is, of course, Jennifer Hudson. And on the right is Gwyneth. She's actually the actor in Iron Man. Actress in Iron Man. Very famous actors, and of course, singer on the left and actor on the right. But as you can see, just a visual enhancement of it, you can see that both of them have what you call a fair skin, a fair shaded skin. Of course, on the right side, you have a fair skin, but on the left side, you have a fair shaded skin, Jennifer Hudson. She has a darker skin tone, meaning she has more of a certain type of melanin, which I'll explain. But however, her skin does glow in the same manner on the right side as Gwyneth's skin does. And she is a much lighter melanin. She has a much lighter skin tone because of the different type of melanin. But also, what I want you guys to notice is the difference in hair color is very similar to this skin color as well. So as you can see, a lighter shade on the right will also give you a bit of an insinuation of what type of melanin is there and what color of melanin is actually present. So obviously she has blonde hair, so you can already infer that she probably has yellow melanocytes, which are given, sorry, not yellow melanocytes, yellow melanin, which I'll explain later what exactly that is. And on the left, she has a different type of melanin, which is a darker melanin and much more correlated with her skin. And that has to do with keratinocytes, and I'll explain that in our next video, so don't you guys worry. Now let's take a look at a diagram. So this is something that I really wanted to bring up because this is something I referred to in one of my first videos. I want to look at a melanocyte, not just go over, just skip over the fact that melanocytes produce melanin. I just want to take a look at the actual biological production of melanocytes and what these cells actually look like. So if we take a look at the cell, they're of course eukaryotic cells. And what does eukaryotic cell mean? Eukaryote is something that we look for. It means it has a nucleus. It's a cell that contains a nucleus. And of course, the opposite of eukaryotic, not necessarily opposite, but the other classification of a cell is prokaryotic. That's your bacteria and your protists. And then, of course, here you have your fungi, animals, and plants that are all eukaryotic cells. So as you can see here, we have that nucleus right here in the center, command center of this melanocyte. And what it's going to do is it's actually going to control the overall output of melanin. So what goes along here? We have our Golgi apparatus here. Has to do with waste filtration, and of course releasing these melanin. So these little dark granules you see are melanosomes, which are actual melanin. Which is actual melanin that's being released in these yellow circles here. And then of course you have your mitochondria, and mitochondria are the powerhouse of the cell. Power functions produce ATP energy for this whole process to go about. And then you have your rough endoplasmic reticulum, which has to do with protein synthesis and releasing and letting in nutrients, basically. And then, of course, you have your melanin granules here, which are what are released from these melanosomes to actually give that pigmentation. And then these dendrites are the exiting points of your actual melanin. So these yellow points are going to be exiting through these dendrites. That's why it's so awkwardly shaped. So when you think about a cell overall, you might think, oh, it's some sort of like roughly elliptical oval type shape. When you go, basically, if you take a microsome and you microscope, if you take a microscope and you zoom like all the way in, you're going to see so many differences between these cells for purposes. This is meant to release the most amount of melanin with a compact center. So as you can see, it kind of has spaghetti arms all over the place and multiple. Now let's take a look at the types of melanin. So the two types of melanin that I was referring to with Jennifer Hudson and of course Gwyneth from Iron Man is eumelanin and pheomelanin. So these are the two different types of melanin. And what is eumelanin? So eumelanin is a brownish black pigment. Of course, these are two types of pigmentation. That's what melanin is. And these are brownish black pigment, so obviously the darker pigment that is most dominant in people closer to the equator. So this has to do with your region as well, also with your parental influences and your genetics, but it most likely occurs in people closer towards the equator. Obviously, that means that there's more sunlight there. So that has to infer, click something in the head. They're having more direct sunlight. Sunlight influences more eumelanin to be produced, and it actually helps protect the skin against sunlight. That's why they're better at absorbing and tolerating light, because they absorb the sunlight instead of actually reflecting it, which burns their skin and can cause serious contamination and breaches basically within the skin for bacteria to enter. And that's exactly what we don't want. And that's the integumentary system's immunizing responsibility to keep those pathogens out. And then the opposite of it, we have the pheomelanin, which is a reddish yellow pigment that is most dominant in people that are closer towards the poles and farther away from equatorial regions. So people in Antarctica, they don't get that much sunlight, so they really don't need those darker shades. They're going to have lighter sunlight so they can reflect sunlight. And when they reflect sunlight, they're gonna have to change in order to withstand direct elapsed sunlight. So that's why you see people in the beach. If you're a lighter skinned person, a fair skinned person, you always have to wear sunscreen. It's absolutely mandated. And even if you do wear sunscreen, don't stay in the sun way too long in direct rays, because you guys oftentimes turn to red. That's how you get sunburn. And that red is trying to protect your skin, trying to change your pigment, but it's also meaning that your skin is deteriorating. It's not responding well to the sunlight. But if you see a darker person, they were going to handle that sunlight better in terms of sunburn. Sunburn is not bad itself, but the fact that you're getting sunburn is bad. Sunburn is protecting your skin. And like I said, that's different. They're opposite spectrums. But the thing is, it's not like a darker person only has eumelanin. We all have pheomelanin and eumelanin, and that's why sometimes our skin color can change during the winter out here in like the States in America. I know that my skin color changes a lot when I go, into summer, because I'm outside a lot, and I know I get a lot darker. That's for my skin to actually protect myself, and I don't get sunburned. That's a good thing. But in winter, I start to lighten up because I'm not going outside as much, and I don't get that much direct sunlight. So there's a much, heftier difference in that fact. So obviously, they're two different sides of the spectrum. But of course, people who are darker have more eumelanin. People who are lighter have more pheomelanin. But they both have both. All types of people have both. So then we have some environmental factors. So this is some unique research that I actually found when I was studying for Science Olympiad competition. They actually gave me this information, and this has to do with our region and our type of sunlight. So when it comes to region, so those who are closer to the equator are often more responsive to more direct sunlight, which would influence the skin to turn a darker shade in order to adapt to conditions and not get burned. So if you think about it, if we look all the way back to the first people, and these are people from all different regions. Once Pangea broke up, obviously that's when people came around. Way after that, so when that happened, people actually were in these different regions, and in those regions they made those adaptations in those processes. And when they started making new generations, when new generations are made, they're just inheriting those same genetics. So not necessarily a region that you're living in, but genetics also has a major play in that. But region had the original play in that. These environmental factors had the original play. And of course, they're going to be less susceptible to getting UV radiation and harmful rays. The darker skin you are, so if you're fair skin, please wear sunscreen. Please wear your SF levels or different levels of sunscreen. So look into the type of sunscreen that you need. And obviously, you're going to also have UV radiation. So sunlight has to do with the amount of sunlight available that changes their skin color, but also UV radiation. So UV radiation can also have an effect on skin pigmentation, as a person with darker skin is less susceptible to harmful UV rays, because you're in such direct sunlight. Your body's going to make that adaptation, and it basically diminishes melanocytes, and it's very, very harmful. Can cause skin cancer. Absolutely terrible, and I'll go over that in more integumentary system diseases. So people with lighter skin, you're going to be a lot more susceptible to UV rays. So that UV rays are basically these harmful ultraviolet rays that are coming from the sunlight, from the sun, certain rays, and they're what breach the ozone layer, are harmful and are actually being protected from by the ozone layer. And that has to do with overall protection that the Earth has. But we wouldn't have any problems with UV radiation if it weren't for the pollution that we have developed, and that ozone layer is depleting. So please practice your recycling, your 3 R's: reuse, recycle, and reduce. Try and practice all of those and try and reduce your pollution. This is a little snippet that I wanted to add, but this is supportive influencers, some things that you might not necessarily see, but this is something that I wanted to include. So this includes hemoglobin and keratin. So hemoglobin, this is consistent with oxygen and red blood cells carry pigment and travel throughout the bloodstream. So this is a faster way that actual pigment travels, of course, your melanocytes and pigment itself. They travel on top of red blood cells. Red blood cells are actually designed for that. They carry oxygen. They have no nucleus. They're super wide and have a cupping around it, so they can transport and have as much surface area to transport as many objects as they need, including pigment and oxygen. And then keratin is a yellowish orange type of pigment found within the body that's a supportive influencer, but it's important for vitamin A synthesis within the body to help strengthen the skin. It has different purposes, but I'll go over vitamins in my later videos to come for the integumentary overall anatomy and physiology videos. And it also strengthens the barriers between the dermal layers, your hypodermis or whatever is below the actual dermis, and then your epidermis itself. So that includes organs. And of course, this is what your blood cells look like: low cupping, no nucleus, maximized surface area. And the cool thing about keratin is that it's also found in carrots. It's what gives it. They're so dominant in carrots, along with their melanin, that gives them their orangish color. Same thing with your oranges. Finally, let's take a look at our genetic disorders. So these are some genetic implications of pigmentation. So your skin color is determined by both of your parents' dominant traits as well as some of the recessive traits. So dominant traits has to do with them, they themselves. What are some things that are dominant within them? Dark skin, light skin, black hair, white, light hair, and of course, darker colors are more dominant. Tend to be more dominant in influence in skin color and hair. But it could also be recessive traits, meaning their family line could have a certain trait within them that they might not have dominant with them or appeared within them, but they could still carry that trait that could be present in you. So there's all these different factors that has to do with heredity. But we're looking at genetic disorders. So although you're supposed to look somewhat similar to your parents, and somewhere you're going to look similar to both of them, or at least one of them, you might have a genetic disorder, or at least one of them more than the other. You might have a genetic disorder like albinism, which refers to the absence of pigment within the body, so you look completely different from both of your parents. And what does albinism look like? It looks just like that. It's basically almost like a complete pale, the palest possible crystalline white that you can see. And some features of them also have pink within them. Pink is actually a form of absence of pigment. So without pigment, the body's actually just going to show a pinkish color on the outside. So, their nose or eyes might be a little bit pink on the outside, and then just pure white all around. Really, that's what it is. So, of course, and there's something really bad with that. It's not just the fact that you're light skinned, you're super pale. That's fine. That's completely, if you're health wise you're fine, then that's completely fine. But with genetic disorders, it really does lower your immunity and makes you so susceptible to UV radiation that sometimes people with albinism can only be in artificial light and not actual sunlight. So it's a scary process, a scary thing to go about. Nothing that you can change. So if you do have albinism out there, hey, there's nothing you can do about it. Just fight through it, and I'm sure that you can actually build up immunity yourself to sunlight and to these different factors. And please take your supplements so you can stay healthy. All right, everyone. So that'll be it for today's video. This has been the eCoreAcademy e-learning platform. Please make sure to like and subscribe down below, and don't forget to turn on post notifications and drop a comment down below in the comment section at our YouTube channel. Visit our website at www.ecoreacademy.org if you're already viewing this from our website. Thank you for joining. All you have to do is sign up for free, and you get full unlocked access to note sheets, quizzes, worksheets that come along with all of our videos, to all of our video lessons organized into course studies. Feel free to email us at eCoreAcademy@gmail.com if you have any questions, and check out all of our socials in the description box below at Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. See what kind of interesting content we have there, and of course, use those mediums to share all of our videos. Also, keep in mind, we're going to be having a lot of new faces other than myself and Anita popping up all over this channel, and many new courses coming up. So I'm really excited for you guys to see the completion of that, and I hope you guys tag along with it. That'll be it for today's video. This has been AJay Raj, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.